They seemed to be so in love. It was like their soul was one. She was the moon, and he was her sun. They had what seemed to be an unbreakable bond. They went to the beach, walked along the shore as their feet grazed the sand. But this time, it was different. He wasn't holding her hand. She grabbed and asked, "What's wrong?" He pulled back and said, "I don't think this is going to work at all." She froze like stone and asked, "What do you mean?" His voice was stern and said, "I mean this relationship isn't working." She yelled, "What did I do? How can that be?" And he said, staring straight into her eyes, "It's not you, it's me." Her big, beautiful eyes filled like water in a bowl, and her big lips began to quiver real slow. "Te amo," she cried. He replied, "No." She burst into tears and she started shaking, and all he could hear was the sound of her heart and soul breaking. He watched her fall apart before his very eyes, and her painful cries echoed to the skies. She ran from who was once her man, fast like the wind, with her feet kicking up the sand. He watched her as she got further and further, unremorseful that he had hurt her. But what he didn't know, that he would soon realize, what he had done was commit love suicide. He killed himself on the inside, and he would see it in time. Many months would pass and go, and the death of his soul started to show. He picked up smoking, started heavy drinking, till his words would be slurred and his breath would be reeking. He started fucking and picking up every chick on the street, not knowing he was looking for her and every woman he'd meet. And he too would break their hearts, then dog them out, because none of them could fulfill his needs. Everything he needed and ever wanted he would only find in she. Many more months would pass and go, and the man that once seemed so strong became so vulnerable. His drinking started to become uncontrollable. Every night he would look at her picture and think to himself, "Damn, I miss her." But he never wanted to call and say, "I need you." He was a man with pride issues. Until one day, he ran into an old friend that knew her personally. Curious to know, during their conversation, he asked, "How is she doing?" The friend looked into the aching man's eyes and hesitated to say, "She's doing just fine. She found love with the new man and they're planning their wedding day." The man froze like stone. He couldn't believe it. It was a bullet to his heart. What was left of him shattered into a million pieces. Like fire to gasoline, his entire soul was burning in agony, and he began to buckle at the knees. "I have to go," he said, and he used his last bit of strength to move his feet. He had no energy. It was like walking through tar, and after a couple of blocks, he found himself sitting at the bar. Shot after shot, he was throwing them back. On the inside, he broke down. He started to crack. Killed by Cupid, he thought to himself, "How could I be so stupid?" Realizing after all this time, after ending it, he was just afraid of commitment. He was afraid of love. He was afraid of her. He was afraid of getting hurt. He was afraid of the unknown. He was afraid of the what ifs. He was a coward. He was selfish. So he ended it all because he was afraid of commitment. It was true. It wasn't her. It was him. And for the first time, he finally admitted it. He took a shot, reached into his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and stared at her picture. He then pulled out his phone, took another shot of Henny as it was dialing her name. Jenny. Her light voice answered the phone, and he froze like stone. "Hello?" she cried. She knew it was him on the other line. "I need to talk to you." "I need to see you," he slurred. "When and where?" "It should be soon," she said. "Tomorrow at the beach. Meet me at noon," he slurred. Good. Drink some water. I need you to be sober." As she hung up the phone without indicating the conversation was over. Tomorrow came, and just like doctor's orders, he was sober. It's been a year since they were here, and he wanted to think clear. She showed up, and he looked into her big, beautiful eyes, remembering the last time he saw them. He made them cry. "I'm sorry, Jenny. Don't you know how bad you hurt me? I know, please, let me make it up to you. There is nothing you can do." He pleaded, "Please, let me prove it. My life is a wreck. You are everything I ever wanted. I didn't notice it then. I killed myself on the inside because you were a part of my soul and I needed you. I was a fool for letting you go. I was afraid of commitment. Yes, I admit it. Please let me make it right and put up a fight." With anger in her eyes, she replied, "I cried for a month. That's 30 days and 30 nights. I was waiting for a call, but I didn't get one at all. It was like you reached into my chest, took a precious gift I gave to you, and ripped it apart, and you never came to me wanting to fix it. I wanted you to repair my heart. I was hoping for a change that never came. I met another man that did everything you were supposed to do, and I fell in love with him and out of love with you. He is everything I was hoping you'd be, plus he's not afraid to love me. I'm here to close this chapter. I'm moving on. He's my happily ever after." His eyes turned soft as they filled like water in a bowl, and his lips began to quiver real slow. And for the first time, she saw the man she once loved become like a child and cry. He saw the same hurt in his eyes, and his painful cries echoed to the skies, and she was unremorseful. "Please, Jenny, I can't live without you," he cried. "You're going to have to learn how to," she replied. As she turned away from his pain, she began to walk away. She was letting go. "Te amo," he cried. Then she stopped and dropped her head real low as he stared at her back, looking for a glimmer of hope. Again, "Te amo," he cried. She then turned her head with water in her eyes, looking at him straight into his soul, and she replied, "No."